podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future. I am here with A.W. Schultz. I am Alexandria Burek, and we are going to talk about factories today. It's a shocker. We wanted to, it's totally out of left field. We wanted to talk about the opposite ends of the spectrum here. So on one hand, factories that are absolutely deplorable, that you would not want your worst enemy, your most hated person to step foot in. And on the opposite of that, factories that are so immaculate, you would eat off the floor gladly. Like you would eat that sushi roll if it dropped the floor. So A.W. Schultz has been to so many factories. I've been to many, but all in the kind of same organization, really. I live a sheltered corporate life, and he's been out in the world traveling throughout multiple continents and has just a wide reach of experience and just different places that he's been. So he has more to share on this topic. I'm excited to hear A.W. Obviously, we won't be telling on the companies that these most deplorable places are, but maybe you could describe some of the things that stood out to you as absolutely horrendous working conditions, absolutely horrendous cultures, maybe some actual like terrifying structural conditions that you've seen. And hopefully maybe I'll be able to sprinkle in some comments or some things to relate to that. And then we'll save the best for last in getting into the most beautiful factories and what made them so amazing. So take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexander. I was thinking as you're doing that introduction, and it is a gift. I'm very proud of that. I tell the story that I've seen some of the best, and I've seen some of the worst. And that is one thing that I think it separates what I do today from many others that have been in just one industry within factories for the entire life. I've seen industries within the food and beverage, high-speed automation, the chemicals, oil and gas, medical devices, semiconductors. And there's reasons why some of them are, no, there's not really deplorable. it's just some of them are cheap, some of them are co-packings. They're part of a bigger plan of selling off the company. Many reasons that can lead to it. But when you're asking me about some of these deplorable factories, two of them come into mind for me. One of them was about a couple of years back, and it was in, I don't want to say the state, but it was down south. And what I was asked to do was come in and just find some efficiencies out of this. They were struggling. They were one of the worst performing plants within their company. This was a national brand, and they had about 6 other plants that they fostered. None of them were in that kind of conditions. But initially going into it, the couple things that I noticed. One is the lighting was bad, but that's usually a first thing I look at. It was a food processing plant that packaged margarine. So there was a lot of literally there was butter all over the floor. So you can imagine slips and falls.
Sliding,
kind of high.
Wear your helmet to work.
Yeah, and you
and you can't see where you're falling.
Yeah, and you would see the guys. Because in some places when they'd have a machine break, the only way they could move is just sliding back and forth. And
Sorry. I just can't help it. I'm picturing this margarine factory and people are sliding around and just
That's exactly what they're doing. And oh, by the way, they're repacking it again. They're sending it through the process to cook it up.
No.
And to send it through again, because the machines were very unreliable. So they were having breakdowns, and then they were lean staffed. So you'd have one operator running multiple pieces of equipment that they couldn't run at all. Their mean time to failure was high. They didn't even know what the breakdowns were. Their efficiencies
breakdowns all the time.
Yeah.
Repacking rate 100%.
And then we go in there, we do an assessment, and they ask where should they focus on.
What did you say?
Well, we were told, don't focus on the people, don't focus on management. Okay.
just don't mind that. Just don't mind that over there.
So we developed plans around the maintenance portion of it and building structures around it. And it was up to them to walk away and do something with it.
To execute, yeah.
Even during the time I was there, they had 2 plant managers turn over. One.
How long? How long of a span?
4 or 5 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's great.
The production manager was really the only one who was sticking around.
Stable.
I believe he's still with the company.
You should reach out and just see how they're doing over there. I mean, I just think that would be worthwhile. I'm curious now. You
got to remember, as I come in and he's having all these people coming in telling him what he needs to fix, I can't say he liked me. I mean, who would? You should just reach out to him and be like, I don't know if you felt my sympathy then, but I'm still thinking about you, dude. If you're still there, my heart goes out to you, and see how he responds. Be like, how's that machinery? Is it still down every other day? They needed a total transformation. Yeah, that you couldn't slap any Band-Aids on that. So firstly, I just have to go on the record and say I despise margarine. And this was an underscore for me on never, ever, ever eating, using, or buying. I've never bought margarine as an adult, like since I was 18. I'm 32 and a half. And I would never eat margarine if you paid me. Like I got in trouble at a restaurant one time because I said, is it butter or margarine? And then they brought me margarine. I said, this is not butter. And I said, you're going to have to take this away. Yeah, not a fan. But on the note of factories, I was laughing because you were mentioning it was bad, but like I couldn't imagine it was as bad as you just described. I think what was really interesting about what you bring up about lighting is it's not something I think about, but now in thinking about the factories I've been to, the lighting was actually significantly bad. You know, it was actually bad. I also know that like with some of the stuff that's on the horizon in terms of sustainability and, you know, being conscientious about carbon footprints, how could somebody, if they were like looking at what can we do this year to make our factory better or whatever, like, have you seen any like savings? Because I know that lighting companies do talk about like, you know, if you have efficient and effective lighting, you can reduce your carbon footprint, you can reduce your energy expense. That's a huge expense for a big factory. So like, what can you share on that note? Well, more of about, you know, as new factories are built, they usually come with skylights and, you know, the energy efficient bulbs. Yeah. But what to your point is also if you can't see it, you can't clean it. If you can't clean it, it's likely going to have some deterioration. It's going to wear over time. Yeah. So it's better if you be able to see the dirt so you can clean the dirt. Yeah. I did a project one time for a group, and it was a depalletizer machine, which takes these bottles and pushes them off these big pallets. And I had this idea that if we painted all our floors white, we could see the light, we could see the dirt, so make it easier to clean. Oh my God, it's such a good idea. And then I also put these lightings underneath the equipment. Oh, wow. It was more of a pilot on there because they weren't going to let me do the whole plant. But, some liked it, some hated it because I think the production manager didn't like it because it was like a big, something I know negative that they everyone could see as dirty if it wasn't cleaned properly. But that was my point.
It's like, well, you're not, don't hate the player, hate the game, you know? Yeah. So no, I think that's a really interesting comment, to say, hey, let's like, I wonder what more, I hope anyone listening to this who might have the power to paint their factory floor white will take this and run with it. That's such a genius idea. And to like, yeah, sure.
You get me going on this now. You mentioned we were 5S before the call.
Yeah.
I was doing another project where to try to make inspections of gearboxes easy, and these are conveyors. I did start painting all just directly under the gearboxes white.
Okay.
And I made them in a diamond there, and I called them white diamonds.
Oh,
and
I
the
like
idea
this.
is that the operators could see if the gearbox was leaking or not.
Such a genius idea. A genius idea. Wow.
It was fun.
What else you got hiding in that noggin? Come on, keep it coming.
There's some other ideas that I've tried too. I've failed to sometimes.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about deplorable conditions, margarine floors, and slip and slides at the factory floor. What about chef's kiss, cleanest, eat the sushi roll off the factory floor kind of place? Have you been to anywhere like that? And what do you think was like the driving force behind those factories, like cleanliness and efficiencies and just pure beauty?
I'm going to explain one first. That's really going to be short. And then I'm going to go back to my first job as a supervisor.
Okay.
So this one facility, they are the ones, they make the machines that make semiconductors. These are, so everything that's in your cell phones and stuff, those little circuit boards.
The chips.
They make the machines that make the chips.
Oh, okay.
They're like $500 million a piece. It's the size of a huge deep freezer refrigerator, maybe a small car.
Wow.
They use a lot of mirrors and lasers. So the clean room that we had to get in, and this is during COVID too. I mean, we'd have to dress up in all of the clean room gear, and then they had a full staff that was just constantly going around vacuuming because they couldn't have any dust.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how clean it had to be, especially they couldn't have any dust on these lasers or on these mirrors. And the lengths and the dimensions were so scientifically precise. The other one, when I was my first job, when I was working as a supervisor.
Can I say something real quick before you jump on to the next one?
Yes.
So when you're talking about the level of dust and the level of care and the level of staff that went into keeping that factory clean, I immediately thought of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and the success story of taking that French cycling team from like the worst to the best. And one of the things he did, actually, now I'm just drawing a lot of parallels to that book, is he like did something with white as well, so they could see the specks. He removed the dirt and the dust and the grime, and he just made all these little tiny, I'm sure you're familiar with the book, but for the audience who maybe not, you're not? Oh, you should read that. You would like that because you can take the concept of like improving things by just 1%. You can take it and translate it to literally everything in life, including maintenance and reliability. Like, how can we just improve this by 1%? And then you just keep doing that over and over and over again. And that's how he took this French cycling team from like worst place, last place team to the best in a short period of time. They did simple little, tiny little tweaks like you're talking about. White diamonds, like you're talking about, not having dust in the lasers, these little things, and how that really creates this like exponential explosion of excellence. So I'm not surprised to hear that that's one of the first things that comes to mind when you're thinking about the best factory, because of the little tiny little things where maybe their competitor or other companies, the dust is a non-factor for them, and or they just aren't thinking of it. So great call out there.
Yeah. So if you take a 180 on that, I go back to the food industry.
Mm-hmm.
I was a supervisor, and it was a meat processing plant. So you're asking clean. So the way we had to operate is that every 24 hours, we had to do a full sanitation, CIP, cleaning process. And that meant taking apart all the pumps and all the equipments in our clean room. And what made it so clean is that because we were a meat processing plant, we were governed over the USDA, which means they're on site all the time. And this lady was tough.
She liked her job, huh?
She was very good at her job. I can't say she liked me, but I do respect that we had, you asked about eating off the ground. We could eat off the ground. It was that we cleaned it that well.
Wow.
We ran 2 shifts of operations, and our 3rd shift was sanitation.
Wow.
In fact, there was one year where we had the secretary of the USDA actually tour our facility.
Wow. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And actually, a funny story was, of course, that was the one day we were running a very hard to package product, and our metal detectors are going off, and it was spitting barbecue sauce.
That was the day you told a little bit about that, or no, you didn't tell that story before. Okay, that's a different story. That one
I got barbecue
remember.
sauce all over the USDA, the secretary of USDA. But there, he was wearing a coat. In the clean room, so he just threw the coat away. But just for the fact that I got on somebody of that figure like that,
that's kind of funny.
The story on that, but it was the way we would clean it every night, and we were always looking for ways to keep it clean during the day so we could get up and running on time, because she wanted to inspect everything before we got going, and she spent her time doing it. Yeah,
that's really interesting. When you were saying we sanitized every 24 hours, I immediately was like, well, how do you do that? And then when you said 3rd shift, I was like, it makes sense. That's totally cool. That makes total sense. Okay. Awesome. That's amazing. That's really cool. So I love that there's 2 different examples. I love that there was like the deplorable was also a food plant. The best was also a food plant, but then also the technology and the chip manufacturing and the semiconductor situation is really interesting, because if you're not constantly thinking about it, or if you have no experience with those types of things, you don't really have the just kind of perspective or frame to think about how dust would impact those mechanisms. I hope that the listeners today are able to walk away with, if nothing else, paint white diamonds under your, gearboxes. Paint the factory floor white, and not only that, but that drastically improves the lighting situation. Personally, I just painted my basement, and my whole house is this light gray behind me, and I have bright white ceilings. I'll show everybody. Bright white ceilings. And going down in my basement is this like dark brown paneling. But I painted everything this gray, and then a big portion of it, I did more white than I normally would do, and on like even some of the sidewalls. And walking down there is just a totally different experience now. It's just so much more brighter. So like, if maybe your company can't invest in a whole new factory set of lighting, you could simply improve things just by painting it a light color, and just being able to see the dirt, that the dirt isn't the problem. The problem is that you don't have a process to clean it. So that's really where the problem is. That was a really good set of stories. I really like that. Maybe we'll have to do more of those in the future episodes. Are we clocking out?
Yes, we are. We're clocking out here like finished goods.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks guys. Have a great day. And we appreciate your time joining us on this episode.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review, and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.